Okay, we are going to look at how important is the cognitive psychology to, or the cognitive theory to, courseware development. So in effect, we are looking at what is in cognitive development, cognitive psychology for multimedia designers or courseware designers. What is the implication? Or how is it informing practice? Okay, so we are going to consider 9 things from the cognitive theory. Okay, so we are going to look at perception and attention, encoding, memory, comprehension, active learning, locus of control, mental models, transfer of learning, and individual differences. Okay, let's go. Now, what we need to know is that cognitivists believe that learners begin with attention to something and perception of information in its environment. So, whatever the learner gives attention to, he or she forms a perception of it. Okay, so if you bring an apple to the class, and the apple apple looks sweet, the child may form an impression, a perception. Okay, then we are going to eat apple today. Okay, so in your courseware development, whatever you attract attention to, then they can also have a perception of it. Now, attention may be attracted to a different thing other than what you want. So, I have this image at this side. Now, I'm using a consistent image and a position. So, for the first time you may look at it, but for subsequent time you may even not notice it is there. That, if I had varied the image and had changed the size, it would have attracted people's attention to it rather than reading what is there. So that is it. Now, there are 3 principles for attention and perception and attention. 1, the information must be easy to receive. That is the pacing, the rate at which you are. It should be reasonable enough for the student or the learners to receive. And as you go along, you should be repeating. Okay, so in Unit 1, we learned that. Then when you do that, when you try to recap, repeat it, then the student will now perceive that, okay, then this thing is very important, so I need to give attention to it. Okay, the position of information also affects attention. The position of information also affects attention. The position also affects attention. So, assuming or even using still this image, for instance, because of the position, You may not give a thought to it. If I've encoded something here, if I've written something, you wouldn't have even taken notice of it. Because you may think that if it is important, I would have made it bigger. Okay. Yeah, and also differences and changes threaten. So if you make things stand out, if you vary things, it will attract them. So that is why children need brighter colors. So as you vary, you get them attracted to it. Encoding. Now, when students have perceived and given attention to it, they begin to now encode. Encoding means to change to a form the brain can store. So when the person is trying to change what he or she is hearing and seeing into what the brain can store, that is what we call encoding. That is what is called encoding. Okay. There are three things that affect encoding. One, the format of the information. The coding depends on the format of the information, whether it is English, French. So if you are English speaker and I use French to instruct you, it may take time for you to assimilate it and code it. But if I use English, it goes straight. Okay. Now the medium of the information, whether visual or oral. So when it is visual, it's encoded faster than when it is more of oral. Okay. Then relationship. What is the relationship between the element, the information? So that is why you must always link your lessons to a previous lesson. Remember, I said that when learners perceive that information is good, they give attention to it. Now, when they give attention to it, they now encode. So I've given you the relationship between perception and attention and encoding. So that is what you need to do, so that you need, and every topic must, every topic must be in relation to the previous one. Okay. So there are two principles that, as courseware developer, you need to keep in mind. We have the principle of dual coding and principle of multimedia effect. The principle of dual coding is that you can use two medium to teach one thing. So that makes comprehension easier. So in this case, let me say this. Okay, I'm going to teach you how to write B. B, you write a straight line. Then you write 3. So this is how we write B. Now, I was using visual and narration. So the child is able to hear me and see it. It combines, and that is what we call dual code. So it helps the child to get it faster, rather than just doing this. The child will be asking, what is he doing? Now, another one is the multimedia effect. The multimedia effect is that you use different ways to express the same thing. Assuming I want to teach them one. What is one? So, one is also written as ONE. Now, when you have one, this is also one. This is also one item. Okay, let me circle it. This is also one item. This is also one item. So, invariably, you are using different symbols to represent one, and the child will get to understand so that he can apply. Memory. Now, when students perceive, they give attention and they begin to encode. When they encode into the memory. When they transfer everything they are learning, they are transferred into the memory. So the memory can store large body of information. Now there are two principles to enhance the memory. We have the principle of organization and principle of repetition. Now the principle of organization says that information is remembered better and longer when it is organized. When organization is imposed on it, or when learner is made aware of the organization. So, when you look at this slide, now it is organized. Let me go back. Let me go back and you see something. Okay. Good. So, on learning principles, I have this organization. So, introduction, behavioral psychology, cognitive psychology, constructivist psychology. Good. So, as soon as you get to this point, you know we are transiting from one topic to the other. So, we are learning cognitivist. Then, we look at the introduction, look at this, we look at the main issues. Now, when you are doing this step by step, what you are doing is you are organizing it, you have organized it, and the learner is able to learn because he knows where to start and end. Okay. Now, in your courseware too, you can impose organization. That is, when they are able to take the lesson 1 and they get it, they move on to lesson 2. So that is an organization. If they are able to do 2, if they are able to do lesson 2 and get a pass mark in the quiz, they move on to lesson 3. So that you have imposed an organization on it. Or you can make learners aware that this is the structure. In this lesson, we are going to learn this, this, and that. That way, it settles the learner's mind and he or she is able to follow and learn. Okay, repetition. Cognitive psychologists say that the more an information is practiced, talked about, used, the better and longer it is remembered. So, at times you can remember some primary school songs because you often want to sing it, and or you also hear more people singing around you than a last semester's course. So if you don't practice it, if you don't use the information, it will decay. It will decay, just as we learn. Okay. I don't know if you can get this video, but then, yeah, this is. Okay. So, all the video is about, I will post the video too. The video is KSM asks the quiz mistress for the National Maths and Science quiz, how far have we gone in education? And she said that year in, year out, she teaches engineering students, but she doesn't see them applying it in their day-to-day activities in solving the country's problem. And she cited an example of the National Maths and Science quiz student, Venus, St. Peter's student, who recently went for a competition in Portugal. Now, they were not able to do anything during the competition because they were not even able to recognize these the tools they were given. Hence, they were not able to apply anything. Why am I saying this? When students get something into their memory, they should be able to comprehend. It is not just about keeping something in the memory, but it's about understanding what you have kept in memory. You should understand it. So, one thing you must note is that when somebody is able to understand or comprehend a verbal statement, the person must be able to restate or explain it to someone. So if people use your software to learn something and they cannot restate in their own words, then it means they have not comprehended. So you need to help them to comprehend. All that we are doing is we are looking at how people think and how people learn and how we can also help them with a software. Okay. Now, when somebody has a comprehended concept, in the case of this maths and science guys, they should be able to distinguish between examples and non-examples, difficult discriminants, and gray areas. Now, when somebody has comprehended rules and principles, the person should be able to apply and demonstrate correct application. Okay, so we need to select appropriate interaction for each lesson. So you should not merely let them recall, but then to be able to apply what they have learned. So your assessment should not be what is state. No, it must bring out the application part. Okay. Now, active learning. Learning involves helping learners to interact with multimedia to create and store new knowledge and skills and facilitate comprehension. So, for students to understand, I'm linking to the comprehension. For students to understand, we need to create a room for students to create and store their new knowledge. So when students are able to create their new knowledge, then they will be able to understand. That is active learning. Now, when we are designing those interactions, in this case, tutorials or anything, there must be frequent interaction, there must be relevant interaction, and there must be interesting interaction. You must note that. And let's look at these factors. You must know, if you want them to be able to learn and to be able to comprehend, you must know whether the information, the response you want from them is going to be physical or mental action. You must know yourself. You must know how much effort the responses require. So, if you ask them to move a stone, then you must know if it is a class 1 pupil, BS1 pupil, you should know whether an average person will be able to do it. If it is a mental work, you must also know how much is involved. You need to know whether the action is going to be automatic or intentional. That is to say that at times you can take people through interactions, you can take people through learning experiences, you can take people through teacher-learner activities. I'm using these 3 words as synonyms, because you take them through certain skills, and then they're able to develop certain interactions, and they're able to develop their skills automatically. You can also be intentional and ask them, this is what I want you to learn from this interaction. Okay. The extent to which actions support the task and knowledge to be learned. And so whatever you are doing must be relevant, as I said, to what they are doing, the knowledge to be learned. So you don't do one thing and expect them to develop skills in another. Motivation. Now, in order to learn, you need to be motivated. There are 2 types of motivation. You have the intrinsic and extrinsic motivation. Extrinsic is external. Somebody motivating you from the external source. Intrinsic is internal. So we need to know how to increase intrinsic motivation. And 1 is to use games. 2, to use embellishment. Use embellishment. Embellishment, we mean that you must add some visual effect. So, you are talking about, you want them to learn about food, how food is digested, the process through the alimentary canal. The child cannot see the alimentary, so you need to add some visual effect for them to see how everything is. Then it will be motivating enough for them to learn. So you don't just state the process. Number one, food is taken through the in the buccal cavity or the mouth is broken down. This enzyme acts on it to change to this. Make it visual. Embellish the information and students will get it. Use exploratory environment. Let them explore. Sometimes you can let them explore. So they can drag and drop. At times, you can let them fish out something for themselves. Give them control. Challenge the learner and arouse their curiosity. Give encouragement even when errors are made. So don't discourage anyone. Okay, locus of control. Just as I said, in order to increase motivation, you need to give them control. What is control? We are looking at the flow of the program. The flow, how the software will flow. Okay. You have two types of control. You have the learner control and the program control. So, what happens if I click on start? It must take me to the other side. That is, so that is a program control. It will take me to a specific side. It should not be the learner who would have to click where he wants to go. You must restrict them from, if it starts, you need to move to menu, then they must know that. They must know that. Okay. So, what you need to know is that when people are novice, you need to restrict them more so that they don't make more mistakes. But expert, you give them room. When the children need less, more restriction than adults. So that is what you need to keep in mind. Now, mental models. Now, students should be able to have a mental picture of everything in order to understand and solve the problem. So, take something like long division. As soon as I said long division, you picture that square root sign with a number here and there, and then down, 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 down. That is what you picture. Let me say, as soon as I said this, you remember this. Okay. So as soon as I said long division, what comes to mind is this. Okay. Now, how computer executes loops or loops. How electricity flows. Now, all these things, when I mention them, you have a mental picture of the whole thing. Okay. So, you need to help students create a mental picture. And what you can do is use diagrams, animations, and videos to create that mental picture, because they have not seen electricity flowing because it's intangible. So you can use an animation or a video to show them how electricity flows, and they will create that mental picture. Okay. Now, transfer of learning. Transfer of learning. Students should be able to transfer learning from one lesson to the other. Okay. Now, there are two types. One is near transfer, where you transfer what you have learned into a similar situation. Like, let's say what you learn set in Form 1, Form 2, you are learning set. So you build upon what you learned in Form 1. You are learning set in university, you build on what you learned earlier. So that is a near transfer. But far transfer is using it in a different environment. So what can we do? We should be able to help students to transfer knowledge into different environments. Okay. So what you can do is, one, to build variation. So as you teach, you must let them know the different variations of it. A fun video I watched some years ago, someone was asking, so what do we use pi r square for? The teacher taught us pi r square. What is it used? But you know, when you are constructing a field, demarcations, this tracks and football field, this the pitch, when you are trying to construct field, the pitch, you are demarcating the center line and all that. You need to know this pi r square. You need to know circumference. You need to know circumference. Pi r square, the area of a circle. Pi r square, the area of a circle, for how to build. You can use that to build a silo, anything. So you need to let them know the variation of what they are learning. Okay, you can build these by using simulations, case building learning, and collaborative learning. Okay, now let's look at the last thing, individual differences. No two people are the same. You must get that. No two individuals are the same. So you must not treat them the same way. You must not treat them the same way. So in order to help everyone, once you have taught anything, please, you need to give help, because not everyone is going to get it as the others have gotten it. You need to provide motivation. Okay. So we have learned about these 9 things that house multimedia designers. Okay, so the next lesson will be on the cognitive, the constructivist theory.